Okay.
Okay, so today we are going to talk about states of matter, and specifically we are going to talk about the liquid states. So actually matter has three different states. The first one is known as solid state, and second one is known as liquid state. So the first one is solid, the second one is liquid, and the third one is gas. So as we know that in solids, that solid is made of particles, and these particles are very closely packed, which means to say that the atoms are very close to each other, and these particles have a force of attraction between them. So when we heat a solid change into another state, which we call it as liquid. Now in liquid, the force of attraction between the particles is much weaker as compared to the force of attraction between the solids. So the particles have more gaps between them, and the forces of attraction are becoming weak as compared to the solids. Now in solids, the particle can move forward and backward, whereas in liquid, the particles can slide over on one another, and the forces of attraction between the liquids are much weaker. When we cool down this liquid back into a solid, the particles become closer to each other, and the force of attraction between the particles become much more stronger. So when the liquid change back into a solid, we call this one as freezing. Whereas when a solid change into a liquid, we call it as melting. Now if we heat this liquid much more time, then the particles are too far away from each other, and they have no force of attraction between them at all. So that state at which the liquid change into a gas, we call it as vaporization. And in the opposite case, if we cool down a gas, it will change back into a liquid, which is known as condensation. So condensation is the opposite of vaporization, in which the particles become cooled down and they become closer to each other, and the force of attraction becomes stronger between them. Now here we have two kinds of different phenomena. One we call it as vaporization, and another one we call it as boiling. Now boiling is quite different from the vaporization in a sense, because as we know, when we heat a substance, the particles get higher kinetic energy. And due to this kinetic energy, all the particles do not have the same energy. Some molecules which have a higher kinetic energy or more energy, they leave the surface of the liquid. So if we compare two liquids, we have liquid here in a beaker and we heat it. So the molecules which have higher energy, they leave the surface of the liquid and goes into the gaseous state. But in another case, if we have a closed container, and we heat a liquid, in this case, the liquid particles, they leave the surface, they goes up and strike the top surface of the container. When we have enough particles at the top surface, they strike with each other and with the container walls, they come back and change into the liquid, which is known as condensation. So at the beginning, the rate of vaporization is increasing, whereas the rate of condensation becomes starting. When we have certain number of molecules change into vapors, then the rate of condensation starts to begin. And then after a certain time, we have an equilibrium. Equilibrium is established between vaporizations and condensation. So it is a two-way traffic. So at the beginning, the particles change from the liquid and goes into vaporization. They change into vapors form. and then these particles condense back and change into the liquid. So over here we have the liquid state, and here we have the gaseous state. So in the beginning, the particle with a higher kinetic energy, they change into a gas. At the same time, the particle change back into the liquid state. So that is called as condensation. At that time, the pressure exerted by the vapors, is known as vapor pressure. So the pressure exerted by the particles in which it is in equilibrium with the vapor state and the gaseous state, this is known as vapor pressure. And when this vapor pressure of the liquid becomes equal to the atmospheric pressure, then we call it as boiling. So what is boiling actually? Boiling is the temperature. It is a temperature at which the vapor pressure of a liquid becomes equal to the atmospheric pressure. So that temperature is known as boiling. And then the liquid starts to begin boiling. So this was all about liquid state and liquid vaporization as well as the condensation. So the change of solid into a liquid is known as melting, whereas melting, so we have melting when a liquid changes from solid to a liquid. This is known as melting. And when a liquid changes into a gas, this is known as vaporization, or it might be known as boiling. And the gas change back into the liquid is known as condensation. And when a liquid goes back into a solid state, this is known as freezing. So all these changes are interconvertible, and they depend upon the temperature and the pressure as well. So that's all about the liquid state and states of matter.